Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session, Cybersecurity Threats and Countermeasures in the Banking Industry. I am Shilpa Sharma, and I'll be your host for the day. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules. For our attendees, the session will be in listen-only mode and will last for an hour, out of which last 15 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. Admissions are currently open. For further details about our courses, please visit our website www.eccu.edu. Our speaker for today's session, Tiya Nyirenda. He is experienced expert in information technology with a demonstrated working history in the financial services industry for over past 20 years. Strong information technology professional with a Master of Science in Cybersecurity from ECCU University and a Bachelor of Business Administration. He acquired several professional certifications such as CISCO, CCNP, Microsoft Certified Professional, and CEH. Skilled in IT risk management, IT project management, system databases, cybersecurity, data center enterprise solutions, IT infrastructure, network firewalls, routing, switching, various systems, operating systems, and API solutions. Currently, he is working as Head of Information Technology at First Capital Bank, a regional bank in the southern part of Africa. Without any further delay, I would hand over the session to you, Tiya.
No, thanks so much, Shilpa, for that introduction. Good afternoon or good morning from wherever you are. Introductions have already been done, so I'll go straight through to the presentation for the day, which is in relation to cybersecurity in the banking sector. But this maybe just to add that it can also extend to all financial sectors, be it insurance and other microfinance institutions. Without much ado, let me walk through the presentation that has been prepared for the day. So in the banking world, the term cybersecurity may generally refer to various technologies, practices. These are industry practices and processes that must be manufactured to align and protect the bank's digital systems. These should be the data, the networks, and the various databases from cybersecurity threats. In this day and age, banks now manage an enormous amount of sensitive information. This information can extend to customer financial data, personal details. By personal details, I would mean health insurance information, your national identity card details, and etc. etc. This can also further extend to transaction records, since we're talking of banking or financial sector. Cybersecurity measures to ensure that this data is safeguarded against breaches, fraud, hacking, and other forms of cybercrime. In the banking sector, cybersecurity is all about securing the entire infrastructure, be it digital, the hardware infrastructure, the software infrastructure. By digital infrastructure, I would mean online banking systems, your mobile systems, your point of sales, ATMs, and internal databases. The protection has to safeguard the data from unauthorized accesses, because the banking sector is more targeted as it keeps customer information and customer funds. So this unauthorized accesses has to be protected from data leaks, malicious attacks. In order to ensure that this is effective for the banks, it is critical that you maintain the trust the compliance and operational stability in the industry that is on a day-to-day basis getting increasingly targeted by cyber criminals. Maybe just to further extend that the banking sector is heavily regulated, and it is prudent that you are compliant and you are kept under the watch of the regulator on a 24/7 basis. Why do financial institutions or banks need cybersecurity? The first point is business continuity. You and me will appreciate that if there is any outage in the service industry, especially the financial industry or the banking industry, there is a serious reputational risk. So cyber attacks may cause the significant disruptions to a bank's operations that may lead to system outages, data loss, and to be more severe, a total service outage. So apart from the reputational damage which I had explained, such interruptions can also be costly in terms of financial loss, and the negative impact on customer service experience can cause serious reputational damage. So it is prudent that you are protected in the financial sector or in the banking sector from these cyber attacks, so that business has to run on a 24/7 basis. Secondly, the infrastructure security, because these days we're talking digital. So by digital, that is the online banking platforms. These are internet banking platforms, mobile banking. I think these days there is a mobile app application, there is a USSD service. I think maybe in these parts of the world, I'm sure pretty much globally, we've got ATMs that are accessed 24/7, point of sales devices that are accessed on a 24/7 basis, and other processing systems, be it Swift and other online payment platforms. These are the primary targets for cyber criminals. So it is prudent that your infrastructure security has to be in place. This can extend to having proper firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, intrusion detection systems, web application firewalls, and they have to be up to date, and you need to be patching them on a regular basis. The third point is the customer data protection. That is the heart of bank operations, from personal information like social security numbers, you talk of health insurance numbers, which I had mentioned about, your national IDs, and in some instances, depending on where you are, you have to register by using probably your passport number or your driving card. So this information is sensitive, and the banks do store this data as a treasure trove of data that is, if it is compromised, can lead to theft, fraud, and significant financial loss for individuals. The fourth point is reputational risk. I think I had highlighted this before, but I will just maybe expound on the same to say breaching banking services can cause serious reputational damage and loss of customer confidence and trust. I think once customers do realize that their information has been breached, or a certain institution has been breached, obviously they'll lose the confidence in that particular institution and move elsewhere. So in this day and age, the competition is very, very, very at a higher level, and you need to make sure that you are well protected to avoid such. I had mentioned of regulatory compliance. The financial or the banking sector is heavily regulated. So non-compliance with regulation obviously can lead to hefty fines and also a loss of operating licenses. You wouldn't want to be in a scenario whereby you are not compliant and you lose your banking license. I mean, that is not one. So you have to ensure that you follow the regulation and the whatever standards that are set by the regulator. So by implementing robust security practices, banks do protect themselves from cyber threats and ensure that these critical regulatory requirements are met. Another point is the financial loss prevention. So any cyber attack that can be rendered to be a success, in short, a breach can lead to significant financial loss for a bank. This can include funds being stolen directly from accounts, costs related to downtime. Obviously, if a system is down, if that means there's no service, and that would render an institution to post losses. Also, there's a hefty price in terms of repairing damaged systems. So I think it is prudent that you are proactive in terms of protecting your systems. That is, I think, a point I mentioned earlier. Make sure that you've got up-to-date security systems, be it firewalls, web application firewalls. I think right now you talk of intrusion prevention systems. Make sure that these are updated on a regular basis. You've got your endpoints. By endpoints, I mean workstations, servers. Make sure that they are patched. If you're talking of Windows, make sure that the user endpoints, user workstations, they are up to date. Don't run systems that are outdated. Any system that is not up to date and is connected to a bank network or to an institutional network can lead to a breach. So it can only take a single node to have your entire network down. Maybe to further extent, banks may be held liable also for compensating customers affected by fraud or identity theft due to cyber breaches. So to minimize the financial risks associated with cybercrime, it is prudent that you invest in advanced cybersecurity solutions. I think in the coming slides, I'll talk of SIEMs and maybe Security Operations Center. Proactive defense mechanisms such as the real-time threat monitoring, multi-factor authentication, and the artificial intelligence-driven threat detection can also prevent attacks before they lead an institution to costly consequences. What are the cyber security threats in the banking industry? So as financial institutions do embrace technology, they confront an array of evolving threats that do jeopardize the security of financial assets, from social engineering to more elaborate hacks. The spectrum of these cyber threats is ever growing and constantly changing. I'll first tackle maybe the threat of ransomware. This has emerged to be a formidable threat of attack to the banking sector, leveraging encryption to execute payments from financial institutions in exchange of decrypting log systems of data. So these ransomware attacks do normally cause significant financial losses, operational disruptions, and the reputational harm. So I think if I go further in the slides, I'll talk maybe of encryption. It's prudent that you encrypt your critical systems from ransomware attacks. Another type of attack is the malware attack. This includes virus viruses, worms, Trojans. I think this is very common. I think pretty much most of the audience here are aware of this. So these represent a constant menace to the banking sector. This malicious software can infiltrate the banking systems if not taken care of by compromising the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of sensitive data. Malware attacks can also result in unauthorized access to accounts, fraudulent transactions, and at the end of it, disruptions of banking services. So with the evolving sophistication of malware variants, which do come up on a day-to-day basis, it is prudent that banks must adopt robust anti-malware defenses and be proactive in terms of threat detection mechanisms. And this will render in putting in place mechanisms to mitigate the risk of cyber intrusions. So I think on a day-to-day basis, you need to have all your devices connected. Have them to have antivirus and anti-malware that is up to date. So make sure that your antivirus server is regularly updating, and if you are connected, if your endpoints are connected to the antivirus server, or if it's cloud-based, make sure that they are up to date in terms of anti-malware, antivirus patch, or antivirus anti-malware patch engines. Phishing, I think this is the most common cyber threat that is used by hackers to target the banking industry. So in phishing attacks, the cyber criminals will masquerade as legitimate entities to deceive users, to diverge, or rather into diverging sensitive information, such as probably their login credentials, their account numbers, or even personal details. So most of the phishing attacks, I think pretty much this is social engineering, is through emails. Attackers will pose probably as a CFO, that's the chief financial officer of a particular company, or probably the owner of the company itself, or be it a board member, a chairman of the board, and they will send an email message to a user asking for a payment. So this favor may involve purchasing of vouchers or initiating an electronic funds transfer, that's an EFT. So these cyber attacks may not be or may not sound as highly technical in terms of the attack vector used by hackers as it may sound. So it is these phishing schemes that can be really be the cash cows for attackers preying on the human vulnerability, because you might get excited. Oh, this email has come in, it's asking me for a particular payment. We see these being common maybe during certain seasons. Say for example, the Christmas season, you find an email with a subject voucher, and the user gets excited and they will click on that particular email, and then at the end of the day they get exploited. And not only that particular user, but actually an organization can get exploited with such. So phishing attacks do pose a significant risk to both the banks and their customers, leading to data breaches, financial losses, and the reputational damage, which I had highlighted earlier on. Another threat that is the common, is the insider threat. So this mostly can be intentional or inadvertent, and can pose a very complex challenge to a banking institution in terms of their cybersecurity posture. So trusted insiders with the access to sensitive information or systems, you see that they can abuse their privilege, or their privileges rather, to perpetrate fraud or issues of data theft, or maybe connive with other outsiders to facilitate cyber attacks. Further to that, there can be unintentional errors, maybe at times due to negligence. This can be by an employee who can inadvertently expose the bank to cyber risks, such as maybe a misconfiguration, maybe in a firewall, especially firewalls that sit on the network perimeter. If it misconfigured and you just allow all traffic to pass through in and out, definitely that can pose a serious risk or threat to an institution or to a bank. So improper handling of data, or falling victim to social engineering tactics. I think I had mentioned this in my earlier point. So effective inside threat detection and mitigation strategies may encompass to employee monitoring, issues of access control. Maybe you can also have leverage on AI these days and see behavior analytics, and probably come up with a very comprehensive security awareness programs. There are various tools that you can use as an institution to monitor insider threats. I think there are privilege access to management tools that can be also put in place. Another point is the advanced persistent threats. These are APTs that represent sophisticated and stealth form of cyber attacks targeting banking institutions with the objective of prolonged data exploitation and espionage. So you'd see that these APT actors, that's the advanced persistent threats, often may be sponsored at times by states or certain institutions or cyber security groups, just to employ some more sophisticated techniques to evade detection and pretty much maintain persistence within the banking networks. So these attacks do normally result in devastating consequences that may include the unauthorized accesses to sensitive financial data, intellectual property, and pretty much compromise the entire critical infrastructure. So detecting and mitigating these APTs requires putting in place multi-layered defense strategies that can encompass in terms of threat intelligence, endpoint detection, which I mentioned, that's maybe putting in place antiviruses or various certain tools on endpoints just to detect particular threats. Network segmentation, you do not want to have a flat network. You need to have a multi-layered network. Have your traffic maybe point north, south bound, east, west, that kind of a thing. And also, I think firewalls I mentioned, you have your perimeter firewall. If you're in your bank, you have your data center firewall. You have all these tools in place, web application firewalls and stuff like that, just to ensure that an attack is contained at a certain stage. You put your particular evidence in place to say, okay, maybe this is a user VLAN and this is a data center VLAN. In that way, you are protecting your network such that maybe if one segment is compromised, it does not go to the other segment. If one VLAN is compromised, it does not go to the other VLAN. So I think in order to contain such, I think you need to have a well-structured, a well-designed network in place, and also make sure that your endpoints, your mobile devices or policies, proper policies are put in place. DDoS, this is the distributed denial of service attacks. This can be overwhelming with traffic that cause systems just to slow down or even crash, and may render services like online banking and payment processing becoming unavailable. So these attacks can be particularly damaging for banks, disrupting business operations, and leading to customer frustrations and leaving systems vulnerable to attacks. So what are the measures that can be put in place to contain these cyber security threats? First, you need to have your security awareness program if you are in a bank, just to promote security and awareness and education to your employees. The same can be extended to our customers. There are various things that you can do in terms of security awareness to customers, issue emails, put them probably on tailor-made training, blast SMSs, etc. And also your stakeholders, you can have them to have a culture of security consciousness and the very responsible behavior. So by developing such training programs, awareness campaigns, and the communication strategies, it empowers individuals to recognize and effectively respond to cyber security risks. Another point to counter the threats of cyber attacks is by enforcing network security. So this may pretty much focus on safeguarding the integrity, confidentiality, and the availability of your networks. I think that's the CIA matrix, and also network resources from unauthorized access. So this can also prevent data breaches and network-based attacks. So by network security, I think it will involve deploying firewalls, IDS, and IPS, that's intrusion detection and intrusion prevention systems, your VPN, visual private networks, secure network architectures that may protect against threats such as malware, phishing, and the DDoS attacks, which are the area mentioned and tackled on. Information security, this pertains to protection of data assets, including sensitive financial information, customer records, intellectual property from unauthorized accesses, disclosure, alteration, or destruction, and also encompasses on the data encryption, access controls, DLP, that's data loss prevention, secure coding practices, and the security awareness training, which I talked on earlier on, just to mitigate risks associated with the data breaches, insider threats, and cyber espionage. Risk management is also another way of countering these cyber measures, or countering the cyber security threats. So as a security professional, you need to assess your environment, see how it is, and then put measures in place that can mitigate cyber risks that are associated with the day-to-day operations. That is, be it systems, technologies that you may want to introduce. So you might need, or it's prudent that you develop a risk management strategy just to do these risk assessments and put mitigation control measures just to minimize or bring down to zero the likelihood of security incidences. Security incident and event management. This is a SIM. So a SIM would gather and analyze security data from multiple sources just to provide the real-time alerts and the potential threats, just to enable you as an institution to minimize the damage from cyber attacks. You would imagine institutions that may have over 1,000 connected devices to the internet or to third parties. How would you be able to detect if the one system is breached or if one particular node is compromised? So putting a SIM in place is also one way that will help an institution or a bank to proactively monitor and mitigate controls or threats rather. Having updated softwares. So as I mentioned earlier, patch management is key. Any outdated software is can fall prey to hackers to enter into a particular system. So as a bank, you need to ensure that all software security patches are up to date to known exploits, to known vulnerabilities. Ensure that you have got proper patch management processes, patch management tools in place just to counter the threat of one entering your system due to outdated softwares. Implementing strong password policies is very important. Have unique passwords, not very weak ones, just to help minimize the risk of brute force attacks. Develop a CISR. This is a cyber incident response plan, just to minimize the damage and restore services quickly in the event of a cyber attack. You do not want to be in a situation whereby your system has been compromised and then you don't know where to start from. So it's good to have in place a mechanism or a where such that if we are attacked, how are we going to react? How are we going to make sure that services are restored? Have a playbook to say, okay, our systems have been compromised. Of course, you wouldn't want to plan for that, but it's key that you have that in place. You never know. Just plan to say, my system has been compromised or our banking system has been compromised. Where do we start from? That in itself will help you not to panic. So you just go back and refer to your playbook and say, okay, systems compromised. Where do we start from? Okay, I start from restoring system A, system B, and then you move on. That playbook will help you to say, in the event that we are attacked, how much time are we going to restore services? I think that brings us to the end of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiya, for delivering such an informative session, and our attendees share the same sentiments. Now, if you're interested to learn more about our program, do let us know in the poll that's going to be conducted now. If you would like to learn more, please select yes and we will schedule a call to provide you with more information. So Tiya, shall we start with the Q&A?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So our first question to you is, how will artificial intelligence help to mitigate cybersecurity threats in banking?
Thanks so much for that particular question. I think I've come about it before. So in this day and age, there is we do have threat detection tools or managed SOC. By SOC, I mean Security Operation Centers that are able to detect attack vectors by looking at patterns in such a way that they will be able to detect certain behaviors coming in from particular, be it outside the organization or be it internally. So in that way, that particular trend or pattern is detected, and if it is traffic coming from point A going to coming inside, it will get blocked automatically. Obviously, there might be some false positives that can be looked at and pretty much looked into, deep dive into them, and then in that manner you can see whether some false positive traffic has been blocked. I mean, some genuine traffic has been blocked by a particular rule on an AI-based SIM. I think you remember I mentioned, I talked about SIM that is on in my presentation. So you would have these SIMs that are AI driven. They will look at certain patterns, and looking at that particular behavior, they will probably act based on certain behaviors. That's point number one. Secondly, instead of doing manual push of certain intrusion or IPS, I think I mentioned about intrusion prevention systems, these will automatically download and apply particular patches onto your network devices, and in that manner they will protect your network instead of having a person doing that particular job. I hope that answers your question. Thanks.
Thank you, Tia, for answering that question. Our next question to you is, what main areas of security that small IT and cybersecurity team should prioritize it?
Well, to me, two areas: security awareness. I think from where I'm coming from, you would see that users may still click malicious links. They receive an email, then they will click on that particular link, and then your network is compromised. So security awareness, user awareness, user training awareness is very, very important, because it only takes one user to have your network or your entire environment compromised. That's number one. Secondly, I mentioned about patch management. I think it's also another area maybe that is overlooked, especially systems that are running in, I don't know whether I'm allowed to mention this, Windows environment. It's very important that they are kept up to date. If not, they can act as a point of entry. So two things for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia, for answering that question. Our next question to you is, what role can human intelligence play in addressing cybersecurity threats in banking? Also, for which kind of risk banks should choose cyber insurance?
If you listen through my presentation, I think from a human perspective, pretty much I covered most of the things. You need to have your network. I'll start from a network design. I think that is done by a human, an individual. Just make sure that your network is well structured, segmented. You need to have your data center segmented. You need to have your user network segmented. You need to have your DMZ, demilitarized drone. You need to have your external perimeter. You need to have your encryption in place. You need to have multi-factor authentication now for all your systems. I wanted maybe to say critical systems, but I think you need to have multi-factor authentication if your budget allows on all your systems. If not, have it on your tier 1 systems. Can you come again on the second question? Or this? I think
Yes,
there was something about insurance.
yes. It was like, which kind of risk banks should choose cyber insurance? For which kind of risk?
So you just need to have your policy in place, I think, in terms of your insurance. So you can have your, I think, your cyber insurance risk in place to say if your systems are attacked, we have allocated this much of funds. So I think that should be driven by a policy. So you need to have your policies in place. I'm sure whoever posed the question, where maybe they're coming from, they would have policies in place. If not, have your policies in place. Make sure that the policy itself speaks to a particular issue about cybersecurity, and that in itself will extend to the insurance cover. So just ensure that you are covered from an insurance perspective in terms of cyber breaches. So in short, have your policies in place.
Thank you, Tia, for answering that question. Our next question to you is, if an entire network is compromised by ransomware, what should an organization do to recover the data on immediate basis?
Wow. I would say that we're talking about banks. So banks pretty much do have backups. That's point number one. So ransomware guys, they will ask or demand for funds. First thing, don't give them. Don't pay any ransom. Second point is restore from your latest backup. Recover from your latest backup. If you don't have backup, I think then you're not putting your policies or processes in place. Thirdly, I think nowadays there are tools or systems, backup systems in place that are taking care of issues to do with the ransomware attacks, such that if your data is compromised due to ransomware, you're still able to recover from the latest, or rather from the uh, current or last date it was compromised from. So if you're putting it on storage, most of the storage systems now have got encryption, so you can't compromise a system that is encrypted through ransomware. So ensure that you are keeping your data on an encrypted storage. I think that will be the best practice to avoid such. But like I said, don't pay ransom. Ensure that you are storing your information or you're having your backup. And again, that will also speak to your recovery time objectives, recovery point objectives, which you need to align with the business teams. You need to agree to say we can tolerate to lose data of X amount of time, say 30 minutes. We can tolerate to lose data. You align with your business teams, and that in itself will speak to your backup policy and in terms of your issues to do with ransomware attacks. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia, for answering that questions. By the way, we have received too many questions for our today's webinar. We'll try to take as much as we can. So our next question to you is, several messaging platforms such as WhatsApp, Telegram, and Facebook Messenger are being used for scamming activity. How can these be prevented? What can be done to obtain an immediate response from messaging platforms to immediately disable services of provided to cyber criminals? Are there any official portals of messaging platforms where such scams can be reported?
Well, when you talk of social media, again, guided by policy. So you mean to make sure that I think I mentioned in my presentation to say you need to have your firewalls in place, and if those firewalls have got up-to-date intrusion prevention measures, intrusion prevention systems, intrusion detection systems, they should be able to detect any social or harmful social media activities. Because remember, this user we are talking about here is sitting behind a firewall. So if that particular firewall is not well configured, is not well managed, then yes, you'll be exposed. So ensure that you are aligned with policy. Ensure that you have put measures in place. I think I mentioned there was talk of insider threat, which is maybe misconfigured firewalls. So ensure that your team, your security team, is well trained, well conversant with what they are doing. If you got antiviruses, antibots on your firewalls, IDS, IPS, that will protect your network, protect your north-south traffic. North-south, I mean traffic that is coming from outside to inside, east-west, from users going to data center. Ensure that is well managed, well protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia, for answering that question. Our next question to you is, how do we deal with ethical concerns in AI for cybersecurity? Because AI can have far-reaching implications for privacy, fairness, and accountability.
Yeah, I think it also speaks to issues of much as we talk of AI, but that particular AI-driven device or technology, there's someone behind there using their what I would call what natural intelligence, quote unquote. So it all speaks about or talks about issues of how you've tuned that particular device to control traffic. So pretty much same as I gave to the previous person that poses the other question. It's configurations. Thanks.
Thank you, Tia, for answering that question. We'll take last two questions for the day. Our next question to you is, what are the best practices for securing customer data against phishing and social engineering attacks?
So social engineering attacks, in my view, can be tricky because I think now that is dependent on the end user. So first, ensure that issues of training are there. There's awareness training. If a user is well trained, then they'll be able to manage social engineering attacks. Secondly, have probably a dashboard in place. If you're in an organization like a bank, you do all these cyber awareness programs. I think make sure that they are being done maybe twice a year, if possible, even once in 3 quarters. Have a dashboard in place to see who are these particular do phishing campaigns internally, just to see the patterns or the trends of particular users, how they are behaving. Then you may target those particular users to say, X user is clicking on these phishing emails regularly, train them. Do awareness, or I think awareness training I've already mentioned about. SMS campaigns if you're talking of external customers. Secondly, multi-factor authentication. I think I mentioned also about this in my previous slides. It's very important also to have multi-factor authentication in place. Thanks.
Thank you, Tiya, for answering that question. We'll take last question for the day. How thoroughly the principle of least privilege is practiced in the banking sector with respect to the customer's data?
Sorry, come again on that. I didn't get you clear.
Sure. How thoroughly the principle of least privilege is practiced in the banking sector with respect to their customers' data?
Least privilege. Did I get you right?
Yes, least privilege.
Okay, so I guess maybe you're talking of data loss prevention. Again, you need to put measures in place for DLP. If I got that question correctly, maybe I didn't get it right, but make sure that you've got proper tools for data loss prevention. So by data loss prevention, data can be lost in the house. There's various ways of having data leakage. There's PCI. You've got make sure that as a bank you are complying with PCI DSS standards. I think in that way you'll be able to prevent issues of data loss for customers. And again, being a banking sector, heavily regulated, so just ensure that you are complying with the regulatory standards. Thanks.
Thank you, Tiya. Thank you again for answering those questions and for the great presentation and knowledge shared with our global audiences. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and we are looking for more and more sessions with you. Now, before we conclude the webinar, would you like to give a small message to our audience?
Yeah, I would like to thank the audience first and foremost for their patience. I think this was supposed to take place last month, but due to other circumstances, work schedules, etc., I was not able to make it. It's good that they were patient enough and they managed to join this session. And secondly, I think I would encourage the audience to just expand their knowledge by I think the internet, there's a lot of information. Knowledge is power. So you can expand your knowledge through various ways. ECCU University, which I went through, there's quite a great deal you can learn from that institution. Yeah, I think pretty much that's how I'd summarize it. But overall, thanks. I think the questions also were quite a great deal, some things that I never thought of. So also a learning point from them, from the audience. Otherwise, thanks so much.
Thank you, Tia, for the message to our audience. An important note, admissions are presently open. For comprehensive details regarding the courses, kindly visit our official website www.eccu.edu.